Let's bring in Marco Vincenzino. He's the director of the Global Strategy Project and contributor to freevenezuela.org. He's joining us from London. It's good to have you with us on Al Jazeera, Marco. So why do you think Chavez thought it was important for him to return to Venezuela, even though he's clearly not well?
After a 2-month absence, it was clearly crisis mode was gradually setting in, and plus his physical presence is necessary to animate his base, basically, and to try to reassure them and give a sense of certainty. But the reality of the situation is that he continues his status, his ability to preside over the country, and what comes after remains a very long question. Now, the idea is to try to buy time, retain power, and use whatever tactics necessary to whether it's him or his successor, to consolidate the Bolivarian revolution and basically try to make it an irreversible process over time.
Has he come home to Venezuela, Marco, then to take power? That is what you're saying?
It's a combination. It's basically, what I mean by buying time, is basically trying to set the process whereby if the conclusion is reached that he can no longer preside over the country, is to be physically present in the country if an election takes place. His physical presence will be important to his anointed successor, Maduro, during the election, the electoral process.
And what does then this mean for the opposition?
Well, the opposition has, over the past year, it's had unprecedented unity under one single leader, Mr. Capriles. Now, what happens is that when the last election took place, they took approximately 45% of the vote, which was unprecedented for the opposition during the entire time of Chavez's reign. But what happens is that although the election may be fair, it's not free. The government still controls all the main instruments of power. There's not an equal level playing field. The government obviously controls the courts, the media, and other important instruments, the Electoral Commission. So the idea is that even if there is another election, it's important that it be a fair election and not just a free election.
Well, speaking of elections, then, Marco, do you think that Venezuela is going to be heading towards that path? Is there going to be, are there going to be early elections called for in Venezuela? And if there are, then what are the opposition's chances? Because they did lose the previous presidential election as well as the regional elections in December.
Much of the status quo is obviously tied to Mr. Chavez's health. The status quo can continue because obviously the courts can make it continue by issuing decrees. So there can be a new status quo for a significant time. But if it's realized that it can no longer go on because of his health and they have to call another election, I think the opposition has a very, very solid chance. But once again, the biggest obstacles are the instruments of state power that are against it. If there's an equal level playing field, it has a chance of, I think, of pulling off a victory.
All right, Marco, thank you very much. That's Marco Vincenzino joining us out of London.